I realized I couldn't keep track of everyone. I just couldn't do it. And so getting to the point where you realize your capacity and then leaning on other people is an extremely important thing to get to.
Hey, welcome to 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. We're a father-son leadership podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And Camden's got all his equipment. It only took him 2.5 weeks to recover from taking the system down to drive to Colorado. So that's pretty.
Where I didn't even record a podcast.
What?
So I broke it for no reason because I didn't even record a podcast up there.
Jeez,
but no, 2.5 weeks. There, I was gonna say, there's your planning and preparation lesson there. Where if I had at any point the night before messed with the technology rather than right before the show starts, that probably would have been done a week or so ago.
Yeah, but because it's out of your sight, you probably don't even notice it until you stand up and go, "Oh yeah, we're doing a podcast. Where's my microphone?"
Yeah. No, Yep, I got to leave stuff out on my desk, otherwise I forget they exist. So, yeah.
Yep. Drew, do you, our good friend joining us, Drew Lints, do you leave stuff out on your desk so you don't forget to do something?
No, I actually keep my desk as clean as possible. So the first thing I do in the morning is just get everything straight.
Awesome.
The person that I work with, though, my wife, she's the exact opposite. Let's leave everything out as possible that, remind me where I was the day before.
I think Miss Suzanne has a belief that efficiency is created by not closing the drawers all the way.
There you go.
Because that millisecond of not having it open it all the way. So yes, and yes, her desk is a stack of reminders. Let's just say.
That's the
Cam,
way to do
did
it.
you inherit that, or what'd you inherit?
I mean, shoot, Drew, you got extra time today? We could go through the list. I definitely got that a little bit out of sight, out of mind. Keep things out on the desk, make sure I know where everything is. I don't know. I always think of, because this is how my brain works. Y'all ever see the joke of, it's like, men are so crazy, the way they're organized, all this kind of stuff, and the wife texts and it's like, hey, where's your paper clip? Do you guys have any paper clips? It's like, yeah, by the back left leg of my desk, there's one on the carpet. It's like, look, I left it there. I saw it. I remembered it. And then it could stay exactly there, and I will always remember where it is. That's how my brain works.
Oh, okay. Well, you got that from your mother, not from me. Because right now I got like this little pile of things to include my hunting license for next week. By the way, next week it'll be last week when y'all watch this show. Maybe you'll see a picture of a bear, or maybe a deer, or maybe both. Maybe they'll be wrestling each other, and I can get one in one shot, a 2-for-1.
There you go.
A black bear wrestling a buck. Boy, that'd be an expensive taxidermy bill, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because you got to get them back into that same shape and all that. Yeah. Clear out the living room so you have space for it. Yeah.
Oh, Drew, I can't remember. I know you and I've talked several times, but I'm seeing antlers behind your head. Are those sheds or those trophies?
Those are sheds. The trophies are in another room.
Yeah. Office space is limited, right?
That's right. Yeah, and I can't lie. I don't have any trophies of my own. We only have one, and it's my son's, so it stays in his room.
Well, that's cool. That's cool.
Hoping to get some this year, though.
Yeah. Well, don't we all? But we all can't. That's the thing. I think I don't know how they do that math, but I don't want to spend a show because I'd be pissed off by the end of the show if we went into that. I disagree with the math. I was thinking just a minute ago, we were talking about leaving things out on our desk to remind us of things. And one of the things that y'all do is you got a system that's called a CRM that you create that's custom built, that we don't have to leave business cards and other notes and post-it notes and things like that all over our desk. This tool that you made or make for each client does that for us. What is it about that efficiency that we all shy away from?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it all started when I was a pastor. I was a pastor for close to 20 years, and I would meet dozens of people each week, and everyone expects you to remember them, like remember their name. And I was the worst at remembering names. It all came from when I was in college. I first started doing ministry, and I had a team of kids that I took up to Canada from Pennsylvania. And we had this trip. Most of them were young teenage girls, and I was told by the actual youth pastor who would send us, make sure you don't lead any of them on. Don't start dating any of these girls. I mean, I was only a couple years older than them, so I was like really careful, like not to get to know them very well.
Yeah, you kind of did. Nope.
Exactly. So I didn't get to know like any of their names or like anything. Like they're like lady leaders with us as well. So I was like really careful. And when we got home, we were in this mega church, and I had no idea they were going to do this. But in the middle of the service, they said, "Hey, Drew, you just came back with your team. Why don't you come up to the front and bring your team with you?" And I didn't
call them all by name.
Exactly what happened. They said, "Hey, well, why don't you introduce your whole team?" And like I froze. And like I'm like 19 at the time. I'm trying to like I didn't think through this very well. I started making up names. I said, "Hey, this is Sally," thinking like nobody would know. Nobody would know. It's I'm just gonna start saying random names, and they were correcting me, and the kids' folks were like right behind me they knew like that this was not the person's name. So that was like the most embarrassing story that I think I've ever experienced, and so that's what started my dream of making sure that I don't forget people's names, that I keep track of who asks for what prayer requests, that no one falls through the cracks. And so that little nightmare is kind of how things all started for me.
I was going to say the nightmare, great choice of word there, because that is a new anxiety nightmare I'm sure I will have, and I will shoot you an email, Drew, and say, "Hey, guess what I thought about last night?" Because, oh my gosh, that's a terrifying situation. I would love to dive into one leadership aspect there, or one aspect I think a lot of great leaders have in common is that charisma of like always remember, like the amount of like stories about like generals who go meet the lieutenant. They're like, "Oh, I remember exactly who you are. Ask about the kid," all that kind of stuff, right? There's a lot of value to that. I'm curious, Drew, in your perspective, I'm trying to think how to put this. Is that necessary? Meaning, does the lack of that charisma of recognizing the names, remembering the kids, all that kind of stuff, does that devalue your leadership ability? What's your thoughts on that?
I actually think yes, it does, because it did for me. Like that experience scarred me for life. Like if you were to have me in a group and you were asking me to introduce my own kids, I'd probably forget their names in that instant because of that experience that I had. And so, not remembering names, not remembering people by their face, like that's a detriment. So you got to work at it. And some people are better than others. And I'm just really bad at it. And so I have to work really hard at keeping track of what people say to me, what people do, the things that are going on in their lives. And I never got to the place where I'm an expert at it, but I did put in place systems and processes that helped me get fairly good at it. And at this point, I feel like most people that I come into contact with, I really want them to know that I care about them, whether or not like my brain remembers their name. It's really important to me to feel like, and for them to know that I really do love them, in spite of my lack of ability to remember their names.
Yeah,
you touched on a couple of things because I have that same problem, but I have been trying to in that self-generation, self-belief thing of I try not to say it. Oh, I suck at remembering names.
Mm-hmm.
And because then it becomes the belief in your head. Now, I will say it ain't changed a damn thing. I'm trying to manifest it. You know, what I'd love is before we jump into the technology of it, because the CRM is such a critical aspect for folks in business, and the way you do it, I think, is very unique. What's some non-technology techniques that you could share with us?
That's actually a really great question. When I was in ministry, when I was working with teenagers, we all know that a teenager's or our molehill is a teenager's mountain. They're all dealing with little things that we think are not that big of a deal, but to them, it's their whole universe. And so it's really important for you to remember what they're dealing with, and to keep them in your prayers and follow up with them. And I got to the point where we were caring for a couple hundred kids on any given week, and I realized I couldn't keep track of everyone. I just couldn't do it. And so getting to the point where you realize your capacity and then leaning on other people is an extremely important thing to get to. If you think, no, I can do this all myself, you're going to hit a wall at some point, and you're going to let a lot of people down. And so in ministry, we actually had to think through how many people can someone really care for, and in a meaningful way. And then you do the math and you figure, okay, well, if everybody can really care for between 10 and 20 people, and you have a couple hundred people, that tells you how many leaders you need to help you care for these people. So you divide and conquer together as a team. I think that's the way we do things in business as well. There's only so many clients you can have and keep track of. The more you try to manage it all yourself, the weaker that you become. And so you can depend on tools and different systems, but you really need people around you to help you accomplish those bigger things. So
what
I wish I could say, hey, remember this word.
Do this thing.
And it's like, that's dumb. It doesn't work. For some people, maybe it doesn't, but I never figured out how to make that work. Really, it's just leaning on people.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, like the rule of it's like what you give, like, so Drew and go, and this is how bad I am, and I'd be like, drunk Drew. It's like, that doesn't work. I can't think of words to tie to people. It's like that would never work for me for that exact reason. But I'm curious, Drew, what kind of impact did you see when you kind of shifted that perspective? I was like, hey, we need to have these smaller teams, smaller groups who are focusing that way to really build those relationships. What did you see with that?
Well, we shifted the church from thinking, hey, Drew is supposed to care for everybody, to everyone's supposed to be cared for, even if Drew can't do it. And it got to the point where I couldn't do it because I was caring for the people who were caring for the kids. And I wasn't even spending time with kids at that point. By the end of my time in ministry, it was more spending all of my time recruiting new leaders, helping them know how to care for kids, and just keeping them accountable. And at the time that I was finished, I really wasn't doing that at all, and becoming more. There was more fruit in that, but people weren't really seeing me as their go-to person, which frankly is fine. Like, as long as they're being cared for, that's the most important thing.
Well, that's an interesting dilemma because it happens in business all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hey, I started this business because I'm passionate about, helping people become great leaders. Well, as that scales in the same way that you ran into that with the youth in your church, you can't do, you're scaling it, but when you scale it, you have to step out of it. And how did you deal with that feeling? Because if I'm making the assumption that you had this passion for the youth and caring for the youth, not necessarily the people that are caring for the youth.
Yeah, there's a difference between caring about kids being cared for and the feeling you get from being the guy that's being everybody's savior. And there's two totally different things. And if you get your value and worth out of being the guy that everybody goes to with their problems, then, you can help people, but you can't help that many people. But if all you really care about is making sure that as many kids get cared for or people get cared for, the fact whether or not you're the one doing it really becomes beside the point, because you see people growing and people being cared for, and you don't have to be the one that does it. As long as more and more people are receiving that care, that's what it's all about.
I ran into this last fall with the Engage Foundation with youth rugby, because we got up to 150 kids last fall. And so I was the head coach and bouncing around and not working. And I remember multiple times stepping in with the group and helping them with the drill or something there, helping one of my coaches. And a kid going, "Well, who are you?" I'm like, I'm Coach Cam. I'm the head coach. What are you talking? And it's this weird little ego thing there. But I would love to hear your perspective on that, Drew, because in that moment, and of course I tell it in a funnier way, but there is that little bit of ego of like, come on, you don't know who I am? I'm the one who did the whole thing. But at the end of the day, there's like what you're talking about there of like actually being active within the action there. What I think, Dad, we've joked about like the cute kid factor before, right? Where it's like you're actually doing the work, you're doing the thing that's fun, you're doing the thing you get value out of. But then there's that little bit of the ego of like, I need to be the one doing it. Could you talk some about how you sorted through that and, moved past it?
Yeah, I think what really got to me was the question of, is the mission more important or the feeling I get from accomplishing the mission as best I can by myself? And when you get to the point where it's not about me, it's about the mission, then you can start to really let go of any of that ego you have, any of that value that you get out of doing it. But it is a transformation because you really become, in so many people's eyes, not really all that important, when really you are the thing that holds everything together, but nobody knows and nobody really cares at that point. So it becomes a selfless act in and of itself, which is really, I think, what we're called to.
Well, I think that's when you become a leader, that's the true understanding of it, and being able to step away from it and see that bigger picture and know that this is what I'm fulfilling is my purpose. Yeah. I'm not getting, I think, Camden, you touched on it, the ego. I'm not, buffing myself up of look how important I am. And I think that's the differentiator. And that's when true leadership starts to come into play of, hey, it's not about me. Yeah. It's about the mission. I think that's a great shift in becoming a leader when you start to think about that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that what that brings to mind also is, and we've talked about this in like the nonprofit space before, Dad, of this weird thing that happens where it's like, well, like Drew and I, we both have our nonprofits. We both want to feed the kids. But it's like, I need to feed the kids. I can't go help Drew. And there's this kind of odd thing where there's not as much collaboration and those kind of things there. What do y'all think that goes back to? Because there's the ego piece we touched on. There's a little bit of, I'm sure, and I think this is a different form of ego, but of like doing it my way, because I think my way is better. But like, what all do you think is at play with that, Drew? And maybe in your experience specifically as a pastor, because that's always such an odd thing. We all want to help solve the same problem, but for whatever reason, there's like a competition about solving it my way versus your way.
Yeah, I think that there can be a lot of competition that happens, and especially when a leader is less mature, they need to be able to, or they need to feel like they're controlling the things in their atmosphere. But I've seen that more things get accomplished when you work together, even if it feels like it's a competition at first. I think that things. We get more. There's a reason why there's gas stations on all four corners. There's a reason for that. Like if there's a reason why they put fast food restaurants all right next to each other, even though they're not owned by the same parent company. There's a reason for that. Even though it is a little bit of competition there, there's also a little bit of, this is the corner that people go to now for this service. And so the more that we can work together, the more I think everybody wins.
Yeah. Well, and there's some self-realization in that, right? I was talking with somebody the other day, the whole idea of competition, right? If you really think about it, there is no competition unless you are jealous of somebody else who's doing something that is similar to you. Then there is competition, and that's an interesting thing to start to think about it as you grow in self-awareness and mindfulness. And when you talk about in your faith, and that's a really interesting thing. I hadn't thought about this in the competition of, recruiting Otis to go to your church versus Camden's church. And wow. Yeah. Share some thoughts on that if you have any, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of thoughts, but I do know that there are a couple of ministries in town that their focus is to help the churches work together to bless the city. I know that in Colorado Springs there is a ministry called Cause I Love You, COS I Love You, and they work to recruit every church that they can to be a part of blessing the city together instead of working their own agenda, and it's been fantastic to see what they've been able to do with joining forces with all these churches together. It's been great. It's cool.
That comes to mind as one example of this, but I would love to hear your perspective, and let's, I guess, to kind of corner the conversation a little bit, let's keep it from your perspective towards nonprofits and, more the feeding the hungry kids type example, right?
Sure.
Rather than just going business broadly. But what do you think are some other lessons from the religious community, like things like that you're talking about of like, hey, we are actively collaborating on this, leadership lessons that you think could be applied to some things you've seen in the nonprofit, feeding the hungry kids, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's good. I think we can shift a little bit to when I was in college, I was a Division I athlete. I ran for Penn State. I was a long jumper. The number one and two guys on our team were number 1 and 2 in the country, which kind of stank for me because I was number 3.
I was going to say that was implied there, yeah.
But frankly, I had the privilege of running with these guys during practice every day, and learning from them and growing next to them. And when we would jump, it was rare that anybody had a chance to get any points when we were competing. So it was really fun. Even though I was the lowly third place guy as a freshman at Penn State, I was really proud of the fact that was the team that I was on. I'm sure there's stuff we could chat about with regard to that. But after my last track meet at Penn State, I ran at the horseshoe at Ohio State University, which was pretty awesome because we all know the best athlete that our country ever created, Jesse Owens, ran there, and I was super proud to run my last event there. But the week after that happened, we went back to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where I grew up, and my dad decided we would have a weekend, like a day, Saturday or Sunday it was, I forget, out on our boat. And so we took the boat out to the river, and we were crossing the river with all of our friends in the boat. And there was another boater pulling up a skier, and he didn't look in front of him. And we all know what happens when you full throttle a ski boat. The front goes up in the air. You can't see in front of you for a little bit. But unfortunately, we were right in front of him, and he full throttled right into our boat, landing on top of our boat where I was sitting, hit my best friend's girlfriend at the time head on, and then I sat up after it went across my whole body. And we all know what's at the back of a boat is a propeller, which I sat right up into. And it went across, it cut lacerations through my back 8 times, my right leg and both my arms. And I thought right then, like, this is going to ruin my summer. Well, it ruined a lot more than my summer. our boat capsized. My best friend's girlfriend, she ended up being paralyzed. My dad was holding me, and he he said, "Drew, you're going to be fine. It's going to be fine." I'm like, "No, Dad, I think I'm going to die." As I reached back and I felt my back, my leg was dangling from the flesh on the front. The hip bone had been taken apart, and um, it was just the wildest experience that you could ever imagine. And it was in that moment that I realized that my daddy, who kissed all the boo boos before, he couldn't fix this. The girlfriend that I got a lot of value out of at the time, like, she couldn't fix this. My track abilities that I worked so hard to gain, they were gone. I couldn't rely on those anymore. The fact that I was at Penn State, like, none of this stuff could do anything to fix the situation that I was in. Like, it was all torn away. And in that moment, I remember there were another set of arms that were around me that at that moment, and another voice whispered into my other ears, saying, like, I'm in control. Now, yeah, I'm not one to believe in like crazy stuff of God saying things to you and prophecies and stuff like this. And this wasn't anything like that. It was just sort of a reminder of the things that I knew about God that I read in the Bible since I was a little kid. Like, God's in control. And in the moment when everything seemed out of control, this is probably the one thing I needed to hear. And long story short, they pulled me into the hospital. It took them a while to get me airlifted there. And I spent a month in the hospital. They bolted my leg back together, and I spent another month at home in bed. I couldn't move. I spent another month in crutches or a wheelchair, and then 6 months in crutches, 6 months in a cane. But because I was at Penn State and I was an athlete, I was able to I was able to go and get physical therapy from the sports therapists, from all the best doctors in the country. And at the end of that year, I was able to run again, but I had to experience having everything taken away and thinking through, like, okay, so what's really important in this life? What am I here for? What is the point? And I think that was a really huge turning point for me. That people are what matter. My relationship with who I believe is my God and Father is what matters. And I got a job working at a church that next year, and actually ran in the last meet of my sophomore year, believe it or not. And after working at the church, working with kids, I quit track and field and spent the rest of the next 20 years focus on how can I help kids go through this tumultuous time of adolescence in one piece. And that's where I really started building and thinking through systems and how do we care for kids and how do we care for as many kids as possible. It's not about me. It's about them, and how can we care for them? So that's the longer story of what really drives me, especially in business. I think the same principles are applicable in business. At the end of the day, people want to know you care for them. People have problems, and they want to know that you're going to remember what those are. And if you've got a way to help them, man, there's no better sales strategy than that. I think a lot of people think that sales is about getting people to do things they don't want to do. I think sales is about finding what they actually need and helping them make decisions that they wouldn't otherwise make, that are actually the best decisions for them.
Mm-hmm.
How did you shift that the passion when you shifted out of the ministry into business? Because that's an all-encompassing lifestyle. I mean, I would say my experience from outside looking in at the ministry, that it is a more encompassing lifestyle than being a soldier.
It's, it is. And, when I went into ministry, I took the same principles that got me into Penn State as a Division I athlete into ministry. And it served me well for a while, until it didn't. I think, I was a hard driver. I pushed really hard to really do. I felt like it was life or death, the things that we were doing with kids. But I think I pushed my staff a little too hard. I think I pushed volunteers, especially who weren't getting paid, a little too hard, and ended up hanging up my jacket, if you will, not because I wanted to at the time. I was actually pushed out, but I think it was for the best at the time. I had to rethink. Okay, why am I doing this? If people that are working for me are getting hurt in the process, all in the name of helping people. Time to recalibrate. And so I shifted and was hired by a young man that lived in Kansas. He still does. He lives in Kansas City, working at a commercial roofing company, one of the largest now in the country. They have something like 6 or 7 branches, and I tried to take all the principles of how I wanted to care for people into the roofing industry of all places, and I found out that those principles do translate. Caring for people is something that needs to occur everywhere that you go, and it served me well for the 3 years that I was with them. And when I shifted out of selling roofs into helping people grow a sales system, all those principles applied.
I'd love to drill in a little bit into something on the nonprofit side still of the toxic nonprofit culture that we talk about. And it's quite literally what you're saying. If it's like, look, this is a life or death situation, we have to go help these people. So of course we need to push ourselves. And what happens a lot of the time is the leader, the person who's the most passionate about, like you're saying, Drew, is the one driving, and you're putting in the extra hours. So then the rest of the team, because the leader's doing it, puts in the extra hour. And then it slowly kind of degrades everyone inside of the team to the point where you wind up, people leaving, and the mission becomes at risk because you're not taking care of that core team. Could you pass, as best as you can, of course, bottle that up into a lesson to pass out to folks? Because I think that is such a huge problem for a lot of different nonprofits out there, ministry or otherwise.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think I learned the answer to that one from the guy that hired me outside of ministry. His name's John Schilling. He told me what I know we've heard this all before, but he basically he lives out. Our people are our most important asset. Our people are, and so caring for not just the kids, which is the mission, but caring for the people that are doing the mission is the most important thing that we can tend to. And I lost sight of that. I had forgot about how important those people were in the process, and was pushing so hard to take care of accomplishing the mission that I was just leaving dead bodies left and right. And it did not end well for me or them. A lot of hurt in the process.
Oh yeah. Well, there's, to kind of double down on what Camden was saying, the burnout in the nonprofit space, because you take on something that you're passionate about, and you forget that, not everybody around you in that nonprofit they may have a similar passion, but it's very likely that it's not as high of a priority as it is for you. Because I dealt with that with rugby. I mean, when I say I was doing 40 hours a week for, a nonprofit rugby club that I was doing, I'm not exaggerating. And yeah, it burned me out because I'm like, it's the classic, because you see this in business too, not just in nonprofits, but in teams. It's the classic, why am I doing all this work? And all you folks over there are just kind of kicking back and taking it easy. You see that on business teams also, don't you? I don't know. Did you see that when you were at sorry, the roofing company?
Yeah, it is true.
The name.
Yeah. No, I mean, they did a great job of actually caring for their people and caring about the mission. But the what is that saying? It's mission first, people always.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh man, I wish I heard that 10 years ago. It's so important. Yeah. And they live that out. They do live that out.
Is there, I'm trying to play a little bit devil's advocate of why that perpetuates so much. Obviously, culture takes time to change. And especially, when whether a business or a nonprofit, you're facing something that is a very, timely issue there, you're trying to solve a big problem. There's going to be a little bit of extra weight with that. I'm trying to think into that person's head of it's like, how can we convince them to play, to invest in the people, take it a little bit slower? Because in the example that's coming to mind, and Dad, the story of Cobra Valley Farms, where I would talk about my mission and growing the farm and all these kind of stuff. And the CEO was quite literally a doomsday guy. And it's like, well, that leads him to make some really freaking terrible decisions because he's in the doomsday situation. And I think that's kind of where these people get caught a lot of times. It's like, look, if I'm not doing this right now, then it's not going to happen. How would you respond to that to that argument there, Drew?
I mean, I think they're all true, and we have leaders have to live in the fact that you've got urgencies that cannot wait, but you also have people on your team that don't have to live in that urgency, and they're not being paid to live in that urgency, frankly. If you're a leader, you signed up for that. And it's a selfless deal. Any leader that gets stuff out of the fact that they're a leader, I don't know that that's a real leader. And there are times in my ministry that I wasn't a good leader at all for those reasons. So I don't know that I have a great answer. It's just you could get a junior hire to do most of what a leader does. That's what it's the 2% that he can't do that we get paid for.
Yeah, I was going to add a layer to that of, do you think, because yes, you're right, it is true that to sit there and act like to these folks, it's like they're being irrational. It's like, no, you might not be as strategic as you need to be, but there is a reality there. The kids are hungry. That is the reality, and you do need to make that effort. What do you think is the key? Because what this comes back to me then is being able to recognize when it's truly urgent and when you've pushed your team too much on too many urgent things, and that's the one where you need to dial it back more and trying to kind of tease out that time frame. What are your thoughts on that, Drew?
I don't know that I have an answer for that. I don't know. I mean, that's one that you'll have to find a way better leader than me to get that answer. I have not figured that one out. I'm always thinking that everything's urgent.
Otis, go ahead.
I think your question was so nebulous, it's hard to answer it. Because, I'll circle it back around to, a leader knows their people and spends that time and knows that, well, what, this really has to get done, but either I do it right now or I allow Camden to put his daughter to bed and then call him and say, hey, you got some time tonight to do something like this. And I think that's a differentiator of a leader. I've had clients over the years that used to believe that they were a 24/7 company because they had employees, in multiple time zones. So they literally required all their leaders to be 24/7, and that didn't. There's a handful of folks that'll do that because they're hard-headed and they think that's all they can do. it burned them out, literally burned them out. And it's created some issues in the organization itself that have, cost probably several millions of dollars over the years because of that.
And I think if you shift context around that leadership, especially specifically, I'm thinking about like in the sports context, but it's like the leader's job is to protect that person from themselves a lot of the time. I can have a guy like go out to rugby and somebody gets hit in the head. Is it a concussion? Is it maybe? Is it how bad is it? Doesn't matter. My job is to pull him out and protect him from himself because he wants to go back out there and keep playing. And I think that's where the leader has to recognize that. Like I think it was Mike Gundy, Dad, you might know, football coach who would talk about, it's like, I will fire you if you work past 5 o'clock here. Go see your kids. And it's like that, because that is the standard the leader has to carry, because otherwise people are going to push themselves too far because you want people who care about the mission. Tony Dungy, is that who it was? Still, love that quote. But the idea of, it's like, look, you have to protect your team from themselves a lot of the time. Because if you're doing a good job building the team, selling them on the vision, selling them on the culture, then they should have that kind of energy where you have to kind of pull them out a little bit. But I think that goes back to just the leader, like you said, Dad, knowing your team and being able to recognize that.
Yeah, well, and what it leads me to thinking about it is how Drew, you've shifted, taken all these great lessons in life and shifted it into, I mean, I keep going back to CRM because that's, in my book, that's the main effort of what you're doing. But there's more to it than that. And how, just share with us how you've packaged these life experiences that have made you a better man into helping businesses, which in the end helps people get better, do better, I guess, is not get better. And it's not like you're healing them, but do better with their business.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we want to accomplish the thing that I was so bad at early on, is keeping track of everyone, making sure that they're cared for. And so CRM is a client relationship management tool, and they're simple tools such as Excel spreadsheets where you just put the person's name down there, and maybe they're who they're married to or what company they work with, their title. I mean, you can get as simple as that to a more robust system, which is what we build. We use our CRM as a backbone of not only remembering the people that we're trying to keep track of, but we're also trying to come up with an experience that we automate for growth perspective. So anything that deals with growth is a result of a healthy organism. And so that's what we try to provide any client that we work with, whether it's coaching and consulting with sales and revenue generation, to CRMs with automated workflows, to calendar, keeping track of calendars. People can register for time with staff, to recording phone calls and giving AI coaching pointers on any sales call through transcripts. And there's any number of things that we can apply into our CRM to help a sales team use available tools that they may not know are even out there to help them track, build relationship, nurture those relationships, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the first time I really started using a tool to help with outreach, I think it was 2004. I had a flip phone, and I learned, I don't even think the dark web existed back then, but it was something like I learned through the dark web how to connect my flip phone through a cord to my computer, upload all the phone numbers onto a spreadsheet, and then automate a text message that goes out to every kid in our ministries, reminding them we've got youth group tonight. So we'd send like 800 text messages out. This was in 2004, before iPhones were even a thing. We were figuring out how to do those kind of things, and now fast forward 20 years, I mean, the things that we can do now are kind of creepy, actually.
No, I take the kind of off. It is creepy.
It is a little. It can be seen as a little creepy, but the reality is, it's trying to figure out what people are motivated by, and then reaching out to them on that level. And there are a lot of different automated and AI tools that allow us to do that in a large scale, and then connecting that with a CRM and a marketing system that reaches out with even hyper personalized copy that gets put into emails is just phenomenal tools at the fingertips of a business owner, a marketing team, a sales team. It's basically, I like to look at us like we're a jug of gasoline. If you throw gasoline on a ground that doesn't have a spark on it, it's just going to be wet. But if you throw that on a little bit of fire, it's going to blow up. So that's what we try to do for our clients. Just give them that fuel.
What's your opinion on what an entrepreneur, like early stage entrepreneur, should look at as far as CM? Because you did a good job of painting the picture of it's like there's the Excel sheet and I'm just typing stuff in each day after I get a call with somebody, and then there's all the bells and whistles up here. And there's a lot of time where, as the entrepreneur, because there's marketers out there trying to sell us on stuff, that you see that big fancy CRM and you go, oh, well, that's what I need. I know I don't have any sales yet, but I got to sign up with Drew so that I can be perfect and have all these things and track all this data here. What's your thought on how to balance all of the bells and whistles with just bootstrapping through Excel or whatever it is for an early stage venture?
Well, I think what we're seeing right now in the marketplace is huge companies with bloated overhead, tons of staff. They're not able to shift very quickly. But you're seeing smaller companies, maybe 10 on staff, maybe 20 on staff. They think of an idea that's good. They're able to act on it quickly and get everybody on board with utilizing the tools and moving forward. Where I'm getting with this is we're seeing these smaller companies with lean manufacturing methodology, which is what we try to apply with all of our CRM tools. We try to apply the simplification of how do we accomplish these things as much as possible with as little as possible. You're seeing you're seeing larger companies that are going to get eaten up real quick because these smaller companies are dominating these different principles and strategies that they've been able to come up with on their own, or they're able to apply them really quickly with the limited staff that they have. I mean, it's almost like they have to do it, or they will die. And if they do it, they're able to do it quicker. And the companies that are larger, they don't know that they need to do it, and they're going to die. I don't know if that helps answer that question, but
no, it definitely does.
And so the principles that I would apply first are get off of that Excel spreadsheet. That does not work because it's not scalable. So you think through what are the things that are most important for my company in reaching out to others. If it is touch points of text messages, learn how to figure out how to text message at scale in a hyper-personalized manner. If it's such things as webinars, figure out how to do that at scale, reaching out to everyone on a list with as little money expenditure as possible with the most results that you can muster with all these automated systems. So like you figure out what is the biggest bang, and then figure out how to make that buck as small as possible. And that's what you need to do. It's not like there's one principle that works or one strategy that works for everybody. There are principles that I've used in the roofing industry with commercial roofing that will not work for someone who is a local cleaning crew. It's just different principles. And that's where we come in. We figure out what is what has been the biggest result getter for you, and let's figure out how to multiply that and throw gas on that, and then try to figure out how to take time, manual entry time off of your daily list of things that you have to do, and automate that as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. I love the way you put that, because it is unique, and I think that's probably one of the dilemmas that small business owners face is, they get bombarded by the marketing, and they know they need to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but and how do you do it to where it's affordable, and I think there's so much to that, and I think that's one of the unique selling propositions that y'all bring to the table with Revflow. So I'll applaud you on that, because I've always loved that way of doing it, because I've played the Salesforce, the what's another one? HubSpot, these massive ones that, yeah, they're a great data tool, but gosh, they cost a lot, and they have a lot of stuff that, as a small business, you don't need. So I think that's a unique thing to bring into the mix. And another thing that I was thinking about in what I learned, it's simple, but I think it's a great reminder, because I ran across it when I was coaching rugby. It's the ego that I find it ironic. The more I think about it, as somebody who is passionate about saving the children, growing the game of rugby, and then they get so wrapped up into themselves and their process being the only one, that I think they actually hurt the or even deny the fulfillment of the thing that actually got them into it in the first place.
Yeah.
So I think we all have to look at our egos and look at ourselves in the mirror and make sure that we're not letting our ego drive what we want to accomplish. So that was what I learned.
I was just going to say on that, it's the question of do you want to save the kids, or do you want to be the savior? And it is that slight difference there, that it is that ego for a lot of people.
Oh yeah. Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
Yeah, Drew, you said this at the end there, but I love this of like, find where you can find the area that you need it the most, find the biggest bang, and then figure out how to make it the smallest buck. And because I think that's such a simple kind of flip in the logic, but what do? Where's the free thing? 99-cent free trial. And then you get all wrapped up into that, and you're not even necessarily looking at what's going to make an impact for you. You're just looking at the cheapest option. Yeah. So start with the impact, then work backwards and try to make it cheaper. I think that's a much better way to go about that. And trying to implement new technologies, all those different things. That's a good rule set.
Drew, how about you, man? What'd you learn?
Oh, it's just good to talk through what got me here. The path that God has put before me and behind me, and just remember, it ain't about systems and strategies. It's about how do we apply those all to help people accomplish and become the best version of themselves.
Awesome. Drew, how do folks find you, learn more about Revflow, and give you a call to set up that initial assessment? Yeah,
so our company is called Revflow Growth Partners, in short, Revflow. Our website is Revflow.Partners.io, leaning towards the software side of things that we push so hard on. And you'll find in there a button where you can register for some time with me. It's connected right up with my calendar. You'll be able to do so in person if you're here in the Springs or in Denver, anywhere really on the Front Range, or we'll be able to do something online, 20, 40, 60-minute call, whatever you prefer.
Awesome. Hey, Drew, really appreciate you taking some time to spend with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been great.
Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank you all for listening to today's episode of 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. And a special thanks to our guest, Drew Lints, for joining us today. Remember, you can watch flips of the show on YouTube at 10X Your Team. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to pass it along to other lifelong learners in your tribe so they can enjoy it too. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. As always, the full archive of episodes available at www.10xyourteam.net. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next time.